Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this workshop where you will build a fully functional Apex app from a spreadsheet. And hopefully, this is done in less than 45 minutes. My name is Joel Coleman. I'm the Vice President of Software Development for Oracle Apex. And I will be leading everyone, hopefully, leading everyone through today's workshop. I'm going to assume that not everybody knows what Apex is or isn't. I'm going to assume that you don't. And so the agenda is going to be as follows. I'm just going to spend the first, I don't know, 5 or 8 minutes just describing Apex from a high level. And then we're going to get right into it. We'll get your cloud tenancy, get your Apex service, and away you go. If you have any questions at any time whatsoever, please feel free to use the little Q&A or put it in the chat as well, I believe. You can request assistance in chat, and there are numerous people here who are ready to assist you. And if need be, they can even go into a separate breakout room and help you privately. Okay, so I want everyone to get as much out of this as possible. So don't hesitate to ask any question at any time. Okay. So let's take a step back. What's Apex? Apex is Oracle's low-code platform. It is targeted at the development of data-driven apps, which in my experience has been most business applications. And the unique thing about Apex is that it is natively integrated with the Oracle database. And as you'll see today, you'll be able to build a beautiful application with almost no code. But for those times where you want to use a little code, you can use industry standard SQL. And what's also great about this is if you know SQL, then you can capitalize on the wealth of application development functionality in the Oracle database. Unlike traditional coding, where you're going to open up an editor and start writing code from scratch, this will be a wizard-driven development in your browser. The development interface is a browser. The deployment interface is a browser. And using this guided method, you'll be able to build beautiful applications, 20, 40, sometimes even more faster than traditional coding. I'm not sure that's proper English grammar. For those customers who are not on cloud and use Oracle Database on premises, the license and support for Apex and the companion product, Oracle REST Data Services, those are included with the license and support of Oracle Database. So you could go out to oracle.com, download the latest version of Apex, and you install that in an on-premises licensed and supported database, you're licensed and supported for Apex. And it's been this way since 2004. And lastly, Apex has an extraordinarily, I like to think, large, passionate community. And there are more than 500,000 developers worldwide using Apex, and this is growing. And they span the spectrum of professional developers to citizen developers to line of business developers to data analysts. It's really an enabling technology for many. When we contrast Apex with what I'll call traditional coding, and what's very popular today is writing applications with JavaScript. You are writing a lot of code. You open up your editor, you start writing code, and the more code you write, the more technical debt you're creating for yourself. So more code to review, to manage, to secure, to maintain. And the less code you write, the quicker you can deliver applications, and ultimately, the less technical debt you're going to carry forward. Contrast this with something like Apex, where you can have an underlying table that has data, or a view, or a SQL query, and you can put one of our rich data-friendly components on top of that query or view or table, and you get a wealth of functionality out of the box. And this is what I'm showing here as an interactive grid. So you can create custom reports, you can pivot, you can aggregate, you can do charting, you can download to native Excel and PDF. You can get very exotic filtering. And the only line of code you maintain is that one line of code that you've written, or in many cases, even no code. So this is the huge contrast between low-code development with Apex and other technologies. Also, the app that you'll be building today is responsive out of the box, meaning the application you build is going to render perfectly on a smartphone or a tablet or a desktop. You don't have to be a wizard in JavaScript or CSS or HTML to even make this happen. We will take care of that for you. Some common uses of Apex. I hate to say it, it's still commonplace in every enterprise, is spreadsheet replacement. I see this even in my own company, where people will use spreadsheets as multi-user databases. And there are 1,000 things wrong with this, and I'll talk about some of those in my next slide. Also, Apex is commonly used for opportunistic applications. That is, those applications for which there is a loose definition, maybe finite lifespan, and the need is immediate. You need the application to be available yesterday. And during 2020, with the raging pandemic, Apex was used frequently, and really low-code platforms in general were used to deliver applications overnight simply because the need was immediate and real and impactful. Apex is great at visualizing data, so there are a wealth of charts and visualizations that are provided out of the box in Apex. You can use Apex to modernize Oracle Forms and modernize legacy applications. And it's also a great environment for sharing a subset of data, let's say with a certain set of customers or partners or even employees for that matter. And just three quick examples that I'm showing on the right-hand side. There's a customer of ours in the UK. They have a mobile application available from their website that runs perfectly on smartphones, and it is designed for citizens to report issues around the county. And it's natively integrated with spatial, so they can say, oh, here's trash on the street, and they can send a photo, and this gets uploaded to an Oracle database, and on the back end is also an Apex application that notifies the relevant party. The middle application is from a European insurance company where they converted from Oracle Forms to Apex, and it's more than 1,200 pages used by more than 5,000 front office and back office users every day. And at the bottom is from a community college in the USA. And this is a faculty dashboard that was rolled out to more than 3,000 people. And the thing that I love about this is it is a great example of the power of underlying analytics in the Oracle database and SQL and beautiful visualizations in Apex on top. So the spreadsheet replacement, think about all the problems wrong with a spreadsheet when you use it as a multi-user database. And I've seen this over my career. People will send me a spreadsheet and they'll say, Joel, fill out rows 10 through 13. And they send out that spreadsheet to 20 other people. And there's no single point of truth. It's not secure. It's inefficient because someone has to coalesce all this information. And what you'll be able to do today is take a spreadsheet, data, right? I'm not talking formulas and charts, but rows of data, and put these into the Apex Application Development Service, create a beautiful interface on top of this. You get increased functionality, and instead of sending someone a spreadsheet as an attachment, you can give them a URL. And you can send this to multiple people. So you have the single source of truth. You audit everything that's happening to this data. You can improve data quality with validations and different controls like selects lists we're going to do today. And more importantly, you're not creating just a silo of data. You'll be able to create a set of REST APIs against that data and share it with everyone else. Okay? So where can you get Apex? Everywhere. It's available in all Oracle Database Cloud services. Oracle DBCS or Database as a Service, Oracle Autonomous Database, Oracle Exadata Cloud Service. It's also available on the always free Oracle Cloud tier. What we'll be using today is the Apex Application Development Cloud Service. You can also run this on premises, as I talked about before, on Oracle Cloud, other clouds, and it is, like I said, fully supported. And there are two ways that you could even run it on free forever. One is there's an on-premises version of the database called XE or Express Edition, and that is 100% free to build, deploy, do whatever you want with that. And then there's the always free autonomous database. One other distinction about Apex versus other low-code vendors is there are no limits on the number of developers or end users or apps or business logic. It is a single cost solution, and you get a full stack of everything ready to go. You're basically charged by consumption. Okay. So hopefully I didn't go too long here. Okay. Hopefully I didn't bore everybody to tears. So this is the order in which we're going to go about this today. In the email that you have received, we want you to sign up for an Oracle free trial account. And I'll give this URL here shortly. After we collectively sign up, then we're going to create an Apex service, an Apex cloud service. Once we have the Apex service, we'll create a workspace within the Apex service. So for those of you who are database savvy, a workspace typically correlates one-to-one to a database schema. Doesn't have to, but it typically does. And you can have multiple workspaces per Apex service, okay? Then once we have our workspace, we're going to go ahead and create an Apex application from a spreadsheet. And I'll try to guide people as best I can through this, okay? So I imagine some of you have already signed up, which is great, and I showed this beforehand. But I would like everyone to go to this URL, and hopefully one of my helpers can put this in the chat if they haven't already. If you could go to this URL, bit.ly/trial-apex spreadsheet. And if you do that, I'm going to stop sharing here a second. You should go to, let me think, sweet demo. Okay, right here. You should go to this page, and you should enter your country and territory, your first name and last name. And this is important. You should use exactly the email that you signed up for this workshop with. Let me think. One other point I wanted to say, is if you already did an Oracle Cloud trial and you're trying to use your tenancy again, if that trial already expired, you won't be able to use to do today's hands-on lab. And so I encourage you to sign up for a new tenancy with the email that you registered for today's workshop. Okay? So I'm going to go off camera, and let's give people roughly 5 minutes to complete this, and then we'll reconnect. Okay? Okay, great questions in the chat as well. Thanks, and keep it coming. So hopefully everyone has completed their sign up for the Oracle free trial account. If you could put in chat, if you could say whatever you want to say, I'm good, or yes, or let's go on. If you could let me know, I'd like to keep things going. Okay, so let's go on. And I meant to do this. And now what I'd like you to do is we're going to go to, I'll put this in the chat here as well. Everyone in the meeting, if you go to https bit.ly/apex-hol1. Okay, and I'm going to show my browser page here in a second. And I want you to go about within your cloud tenancy creating an Apex service. Okay, and I want to show something here if I can, please. here. Yeah. Um, I'll show my browser. That when you go to bit.ly apex HOL1, okay, what I'd like you to do is here on the upper left, click the getting started. And there's many ways that you could get started here. And we want you to follow option 1. So Oracle Apex Application Development Service. Okay. So you're going to click Oracle Apex Application Development Service. And step number 1 is going to say, please click this link to create your free account. Don't worry about it. You already did that. You can go ahead and within your tenancy, scroll down, assuming you're already signed in, and start at number 3 here to begin the creation of your Apex Application Development Service. Okay? And again, I'll give you, let's say, about 4 minutes. If you could go ahead and follow this. And any questions at all, please ask them in chat. Oh, and once you're done, if you could give me the hi sign in chat too to say you're all good. And if you have issues, let us know too. Okay. I noticed not too many people have said that they've created their Apex service so far, but I want to show you what this should look like. That when you create your Apex service, let's let this thing display here. That you should get a nice green here. So if I look at my Apex instances, I have one here I called Apex Instant Tips. And after you create it, it should be nice and green here. And if people could let me know if they got this far, or if they still need a little time to create their Apex service. Excellent. Nice job, Brian. Mike is good. DeWalker is good. Excellent. I'll give it just one more minute. Oh, John is forging ahead and creating the workspace. Oh, you guys are great. Uh-oh. Okay, I don't want to keep people waiting. Oh, it says provisioning. Okay, I'm going to wait 30 seconds for Carlos. And Carlos, you might have to reload your browser. Sometimes it doesn't refresh enough quickly enough. You can reload, and it might turn green then. Josephine, if you need help, can you please go into one of the breakout rooms, please? And as Christina says, they're available if you click breakout room from the bottom of Zoom. Oh, so Carlos, I assume that worked for you then. So you're all green now, right? Uh-oh. Okay. Oh, okay. I'll wait just 30 more seconds. Okay, good. It's green. All right. Carlos is ready, so I'm ready. Let's go. So then step 3, and you're going to wonder how we're going to complete this in a half an hour, but trust me, we will. I want you to go ahead and create an Apex workspace. So this is the continuation of this getting started. So before we start actually lab 1, we want to create your workspace, and I'll show you where this is at in the instructions here. That you create the tenancy, you get green, you hit the button to launch Apex, and then you sign into administration. So really, of step 8 from this getting started in application development service, go ahead and create an Apex workspace. Go ahead and create the Apex workspace, and then log into that workspace. Okay, and your database workspace and username is going to be a demo. And then I'll wait. It should just take just about, honestly, no more than a minute or two for you to create your Apex workspace, and we'll get going in literally just 2 minutes. Okay? Okay, people are wrapping up quickly. Okay, great. So I'm going to show you you're going to build this application, and we're going to do it now in less than 28 minutes. And this application was sourced from data in a spreadsheet, and you get a nice looking dashboard. You get we're going to build a faceted search report on top of this. Right, so I can do filtering of my data easily this way. I can do charting in my faceted search. I get a nice calendar component. The one thing that I want to show people here is that I just need to familiarize people with working in an Apex environment. Remember how I said the runtime environment is a browser and the development is a browser? It's very easy to toggle between I'm running my app and I'm building my app. And you will do this with this toolbar at the bottom called the developer toolbar. So it's very easy for me to go in here. I can then be editing my application. I can drill down to a specific page. We're looking at the pages of my app. I go ahead and will make my changes to this application when this comes up here. And then just as easily, I can click the little run button in the upper right, and I can run it. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close all this stuff here. And I'm actually going to do what you did, and I'm going to sign up for a demo workspace. Okay, so let me, wow, too much going on here. Okay, so I'm going to sign out, and I'm going to sign in, and we're going to begin lab number 1, which is create an app from a spreadsheet. Okay, so I'm going to log back into administration services here, and watch how easy I can create a workspace. Okay, so manage workspaces, create, I'll call it demo just like you did. I'll create some password. Okay, and that's it. So now I'm going to log into my demo workspace. And let's get going. So I'm going to guide people through this as well, but you can feel free to work independently. Sometimes I don't know what people prefer best if they like to be walked through this. So I'm going to begin with step 1, loading project and tasks data. And this is my development interface, what I'm looking at right now of Apex. So I have my SQL workshop, so I can build database objects, browse data, run SQL commands, create REST APIs. And I also have my app builder, and this is where I can create applications. And that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and create a new application. And this could be, an application on existing data, on existing tables. In my case, I want to do this from a file. And I could drag and drop an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file or XML. In this case, I'm going to use one of the built-in spreadsheets that we have here. I'm going to click this little tab in the upper right, copy and paste, and I'm going to choose project and tasks. So this is going to populate with tab delimited data, effectively spreadsheet data. And I'm going to click next. And it parsed this data. It gave me a preview of this data. And I'm going to provide a name for my table here. I'm going to call it project tasks. I'm going to leave everything else the default. And I'm going to click the load data button in the bottom here. Okay? So give it a second. Okay? And you should get a success message like this, project task created with 73 rows. So as of right now, there's a table in our Apex service, and we have populated it with the data from this spreadsheet. Now, I could normally begin by creating an application, but I'm going to go ahead and click View Table, just like it says in the workshop here. And this takes me into my SQL workshop where I can browse the structure of this table. I can look at the data that previously was in my spreadsheet is now in my database. I'm going to come back here to table, and I'm going to click create app. So I want to create an Apex application on top of this table. I'll go ahead and do that. And what this will do is populate the create application wizard in Apex. Let's give it a second here. So I can see that it has pre-created a number of pages for me, a dashboard, that faceted search report I had. It's given me a title. I can change this to whatever I wish. And we have what are called application features. So features that I can associate with my application, like access control or activity reporting. And I just want to do the check all. And I'm going to click create application. And I'm going to let it go. So at this point, it is creating the Apex application. It's not generating code. It is defining in the Apex catalog the metadata, the definition of this application. Let's give it just a minute. Okay, there we go. So now I have my application with no code. You will as well, 29 pages in all. And to run my application, I just click on run. So I can click run here, and I will log in with the same credentials that I logged in to my workspace, my development environment. So in this case, remember, my username was demo, and you can specify your password. And I encourage you to experiment with this application that you just created. Okay? I'll pause here a minute, and if people want a few minutes to go ahead and complete this on their own, I'll wait just a couple minutes, okay? Okay, I'm going to advance now. We're going to go to Lab 2. If people desperately need more time, let me know. But I'd like to keep this rolling if we could, please. So hopefully people took a look at this, right? Here's your dashboard. Here's a faceted search report. And I say we continue to Lab 2. And that is, in Lab 2, we want to improve this faceted search report. So for example, I would want people to be able to see the status facet up higher in my faceted search report. And so what I'd like you to do is navigate to this project tasks search page. And let's edit this page. So at the bottom in the developer toolbar, as the instructions will tell you, let's click edit page 3. And just to, I don't want people to be deterred about Apex. When you look at this page, you might think there's 1,000 places to click. Don't worry, it only gets simpler from here, okay? Over here on this left-hand side is our page rendering tree view of components on the page. Within the middle is our page layout. So this gives a visual representation of elements on the page. And on the right-hand side are attributes associated with our selected component. So notice as I click an element, in this case a facet, on the left-hand side of the page, that the properties on the right-hand side also are updated, okay? And so for anything that I click here, I can really choose it from the page layout view or on the rendering tree side, and I'll be able to adjust my application definition on the right-hand side. So one of the things we want to do is there is a facet associated with this. And what I can do, at least on my Mac, is you can double click this and drag and drop it underneath project. So now I've reordered these facets. And also status, if I look at this, it's rendered as a group of checkboxes. But if I just want, which means that you can do multi-selection on this, but if I want someone to do just one selection, I can make this a radio group. So I'll make the type of this to be a radio group. And also, if I scroll down, I can adjust the zero account entries. It says hide these. I will say show these last. Okay. So I save and run my page. And now, here's my reordered status. It's rendered now as a radio group instead of a checkbox. And hopefully people see how easy this is to make changes to your application and immediately run it. That there is no separate compilation stage or deployment stage. You get into a very productive cycle of build and run and build and run and build and run. Okay? So I'll give people just a minute to complete this section of the lab, okay? Sorry about this. I even forgot it. The second part of this lab, and that is that these facets here at the bottom, that I want these to be initially collapsed when someone comes to the page. I don't want all this complexity on the page. So what I can do, I'll edit this page, and I can multi-select these items. So I can go ahead and, in my case on a Mac, I'll select assign to, and I'll hold down the shift key and select P3 cost. So now notice how all three of these are selected. And I can say, come down here to the property on the right-hand side and say initially collapsed. So now when I save this, I'm changing the definition of all three of those at the same time because it was multi-selected. And there I am, right? So the first three should be collapsed. Assigned to budget and cost. Yeah. Oh, but that's because I had that expanded before. That was my mistake. Okay. I need a quick feedback here. Too fast, too slow, useful, not useful. You tell me. This is our mutual hands-on, our workshop, and I want you to get some benefit out of this. It's magic. Okay, you people are too kind. Okay, we're going to advance now. I'm going to go ahead to the third part of the lab, and I want us to improve the report and forms. So firstly, what we're going to do, and this is actually quite interesting. I didn't even really talk about this component. But in the project tasks report, this is what we call an interactive report. So you, the developer, you put the interactive report on a table or a query, and your job is done. Now it's up to the end user can actually customize the view of this data as they see fit. So in Lab 3, Step 1 here, we're going to enhance the interactive report. And notice that as I click on these column headings, I could change the sort order. I could say hide the view of this, or I could do control breaking here. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group here by project. Okay? And what I want to do is I want to add a column to this report that's not really part of the underlying source data. And I do that via what's known as a computation, okay? So I'll go to the Actions menu, Data, and Compute. I got my cheat sheet over here. And my column label is a budget versus cost. So this is a spreadsheet of tasks and projects and budgets and cost. So I'll say budget v cost, and I'll click on this format mask here. I'll choose this nice currency one. And the computation expression, I could either manually enter it, or I can click on the columns here, and I can say budget minus cost. So I minus H, okay? And I'm going to hit apply. And notice that now I have magically a column that wasn't there before. And if I want to sum the budget versus cost by project, what I can do is I can now add a new aggregation. So I can say aggregate, and I do a summation of an existing column or even my new virtual column that I just have, my new computation. So now I get my grouping, right? Budget versus cost by project. And then let's keep it rolling. This same data, I can now create a chart against this. So I will do, I will choose my label for my chart as project. The value, again, it's my new computed column, budget versus cost. My function, I want to do a sum of these. And I want to sort by label ascending. And the orientation, I want it to be a horizontal bar chart. And I hit apply changes. And this is power in the hands of the end user, not necessarily the developer here. So notice that now I can toggle between the report view as I had it before, or the chart view. Let me do a little more sorting. I'm going to go back to my report view here and apply a little more sorting. So I'm going to do this. My second column is going to be sort within project by start date, and then also within that end date, and change this to nulls always last, and hit apply changes. Okay, looking pretty good. And then the last thing that I want to do is save my report. And this is where it's really powerful, because everything I just showed you, an end user could do themselves, and they could save their own custom view of this data. But if you are logged into both the development environment and the runtime environment, you can also save this as an additional view of data for everyone who uses this report. So you can think of this as really a mini real-time report builder. And what I'll do is I'll come to the Actions menu and do Report and Save Report. And notice how this select list up here, it's only displayed for developers. You and I are all developers because we're logged into this. And I'm going to save this not as a named report, which would be private to me. I'm going to choose as default report settings. And I'm going to choose as an alternative, okay? And I'll call this budget review. So now notice that I have this select list here. And the next time that anyone comes into my application, I'm going to come back here and I'm going to choose primary report and click reset. So this will take me back to the way the original developer, we wanted it. I've now created, here's the original report, and here's the budget review that now everyone can see, complete with the view of the data and the chart as well. So if you're building a report on data for your end users, maybe they want it sorted by, they want different reports by department or by fiscal quarter. You can provide all of these pre-canned reports for them. And they can also additionally create additional reports. So they could remove columns, add additional filters, and have their own private custom reports as well. Okay? I'm looking at the time here, and we have 6 minutes. So anything we don't complete today, you're able to continue on this. Someone raised in the chat, after today, this trial, you have $500 of free trial, which will last for 30 days. And at the end of 30 days, you'll still have access to the always free services. So you could create an always free autonomous database with Apex in it and use it just like that. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go now to the second part of this, and we're going to enhance the form. So we're going to do two things. Okay, so this is Lab 3, Step 2. What we'd like to do, I'm going to go back to my base report here, is if I click on this pencil icon, this now brings up a form. And what I would like to do is reposition some of these, we call these page items, these items on the page, change the position of them. And also, for example, this one here, this status lets me freeform enter anything. So it could be closed, it could be open, it could be on hold, or what's stopping me from entering foobar, right? Some junk. And so I'd like to change the display of that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, as I'm running this page here, I'm going to click on the developer toolbar at the bottom. And I should also point out, if you were to give this link of your application to end users, they're not logged in the development environment, they're not going to see the developer toolbar, right? That's only for people who are logged into both. So one thing that I'd like to do is in this page layout area, what I'd like to do is drag and drop this end date and move it adjacent on the same line to start date. So I'm going to start dragging. I'm going to get the little box over here, and then I'm going to drop it. So you can reposition items via drag and drop, but you can also do it with attributes. So for example, if I want this P5 budget on the same line as cost, I could drag and drop it again. But what I can also do is come over here on the right-hand side of the properties and say Start New Row, and it will remain on the previous row that it was before. Okay. So I'm going to save this. I'll show you something interesting. So if I try to save and run, I'm going to get an error because it says you cannot run a modal dialog directly from the builder. So if I wanted to see my changes, I would have to come back to the tab where I'm running my app and then open the modal dialog again. So one last thing here is this status. I'd like to change this from a freeform text field to a select list. So let's do that. And I'll give you another trick here. I could either go back, I could click edit page 5 and it takes me back into the builder. Also what I can do in the developer toolbar is click quick edit and then hover over my form. And now I click this. So I'm not going to click the spanner or the wrench. I'm just going to click the item and it will take me into the builder on this page, but it will also have this selected, the same item that I was looking at in real time. So what I would like to do is change this type over here from a text field to a select list. I can see now there's red on my page. And notice that there's a little badge here as well saying that there's some errors on my page. So I can go and click this and it will take me to the properties here and it says, oh, a list of values, you need to provide a list of values. Is this a static list of values or a query? I'm going to say this is a SQL query. And I could cram it in the small window here. Or what I can do is click this little arrow. Well, that didn't work. To bring up my code editor. Here I am. And I can say select distinct status display status are, you can copy and paste this from project tasks, order by 1. Looks syntactically valid. I can click the check mark here. Looks good. So there's a SQL query, and I'm also going to just say display null value. And when the display value is presented, I want someone to see the label select status. Okay. I click save. Obviously, if I try to run it, it's going to say, sorry, Joel, you lose. But I'm going to come back to my form now. And here's my repositioned elements. And here is my select list, right? So that if I want it to be null, then there's going to be select status, or I could choose this right now. I'm a database guy. I would still want someone to ensure the underlying data model had a check constraint on the values, just in case. But this ensures that the input you have, that they're restricted to the domain of values. Okay. And as I mentioned before, if you go to apex.oracle.com and you click this little hamburger menu in the upper right, you'll see all sorts of information here. And then at the very bottom of the page as well, there's links to the Facebook page, the LinkedIn group. There's tons of videos, the Twitter account, however you want to follow us on social media. Okay. I want people to join the community as so many others have. Okay. So the last part, what we're going to do is we're going to link the calendar. And what we're going to do is improve the display of the calendar. And then we're also going to link this to a form, the existing form that we just improved upon, and also refresh the calendar when we're done editing a row, okay? So now I'm going to navigate to my calendar page. Hopefully you are as well. Let me open up my instructions over here. And the lab is kind of funny here. What I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and edit the page here. And we'll see that there's a couple regions on the left-hand side here. Obviously, I want to choose the calendar region. And I'm going to edit some of the attributes over here on the right-hand side. So the attributes here. Let me click that. I missed it. So one thing I can do is I want the display column not to be project, but I want it to be task name. And then this only is using a start date. I can also choose to display the end date if I wish. We're intentionally setting you up here for this to look bad, so don't be deterred. Task name. Okay, there we go. That worked that time. So be prepared that this hopefully is going to look really bad, right? So we're now showing start date and end date. We are showing task name. So utterly not cool. I'm going to come back to edit this page and turn off end date, right? Just choose select and run here. So much, much better. And let's see. The last thing we want to do is link this to the form. So notice that as I hover over this, and if you do as well, if you click it, it's not going to do anything. And what we'd like to do is to be able to link it to the form that we're using that we already customized, okay? So I'm going to navigate back into the builder here, as are you. And in the attributes, I'm going to scroll down a little bit and notice that there are two attributes. One, where do we want to go when someone clicks create? And where do we want to go if someone clicks an actual selected cell in the calendar? And this is what we're going to edit here. So I'm going to click on the view edit link here. And where's the target? When someone clicks this, where do I want them to go? I want them to go to page 5, which is the form. There are items on that page that maintain session state that we'll want to pass those values to that page. And this is defined in this case by our primary key ID. And I want to pass the value of ID. So I can just click these little pop-ups here and choose them. And lastly, when we're going there, I want to clear the cache on that page. And that is any session state that was set on that page, go ahead and clear it before we go there, okay? So I can choose this. I think I'm good. And I'm going to just show this, and then I'll show the last feature we're going to implement. So I've now linked this. And now if I click this, I can now get to that same form that I was editing things, right? So let's say I change this date here. I hit apply changes. Then look at this automatically even refreshed here. When this dialog closed. What we could do, it's kind of interesting now, this might be default behavior we have in Apex, but what we can do is create something called a dynamic action, which will automatically refresh this calendar region when we close a dialog, okay? So what I'm gonna do, and this is the last thing we'll do today, is I'm going to come back and edit my page here. I'm going to right click on the calendar region. There's many things I can do here. And one of these is I can say create a dynamic action. Okay. So a dynamic action is dynamic client interactivity on your page without writing JavaScript. People typically call these Ajax actions or client interaction. It is our declarative way for you to perform actions on the page without writing JavaScript, okay? And what I want to do is I'm going to say refresh calendar. And then the event's going to be when a dialog is closed. And I want the selection type to be region, and the region is calendar. So everything is good there. And the action right now for this dynamic action is show, but we don't want to show. All we want to do is refresh the calendar region itself. So I'm going to say refresh, and the selection type is not going to be an item. It's going to be a region, and the region is going to be my calendar region. And that's basically it. So what this means is when the dialog closes, it will automatically refresh the calendar region. I'll see my changes immediately. So for example, if I change the start date of this to, I don't know, 5 and change this, I change my data, and it also updates, shows me the results in real time. So I think that's it. I don't know. I hope this was useful for people. The other thing that I'll put in the chat here is we have a number of hands-on labs. So if you go to apex.oracle.com/HOLs, I think I'll confirm this, apex.oracle.com/HOLs, hands-on labs. There we go. That's right. So I'll put this in the chat here right now. That we followed this spreadsheet lab, but there are many other labs you could follow. One is where you create an application against a REST data source. Another one is where you create an application and create REST APIs on that data. So there are many places you can go from here. And I think that's about it. If anybody has any questions at any time, I'll even put my Twitter handle in chat there. Mention me on Twitter. I'll gladly help you in any way possible. And I think with that said, we'll call it a wrap here. I thank everyone for your time and attention today. I hope you found this useful, and I hope we'll see you at a future event. Thank you.